Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Charlton Live, sponsored by the British Institute of Kitchen, Bedroom and Bathroom Installation. My name is Louis Mendez. On this week's show, we'll be looking back at yesterday's 3-2 home defeat against Port Vale at the Valley. Joining me to have a very miserable discussion. First up, top right, Sue Gallop. How you doing, Sue?
I'm all good, Louis. Thank you very much.
Yeah, well, obviously I haven't remembered what's just happened in the last 24 hours then. And also joining us on the bottom of the screen is Lewis Cat. How you doing, Luke?
Morning, mate. How are you?
Yeah, not great, if we're being honest, based on yesterday's game. Morning to everyone in the chat as well. I can see Sid's in there, Ian, Dom, and all hell let loose, Charlton fanboy, Charlton FC boy, I should say, Stuart and Paul in there as well. If you want to have your say on this week's show, make sure you do so. We've got loads of tweets, emails, and comments already coming in the chat. On the show, we will look back at the game. We'll hear the goals shortly. We're also, of course, going to hear from the Addicts boss, Dean Holden. Later on in the show, our guest fan is going to be David Ramzan, which I'm looking forward to, a Charlton fan and author. So hopefully some light relief at the end of the show. We'll talk about his new book as well as yesterday's performance. Sue, before we hear the highlights, I will let you know as well, actually, the start of the show, we are going to finish slightly early, maybe 5 minutes or so, just because obviously it's the World Cup final today. And I know a lot of you will want to go and watch that. So we will end at 5-2. So we're all ready for kickoff. Sue, I'll tell you who wasn't ready for kickoff yesterday. It seemed to be us after the first goal we conceded, because then we conceded another one immediately. What a weird game. Probably summed up pretty much every game we've had so far this season, in that we've had spells. We scored a goal to have the lead. We scored a goal to get back into the game. But we've been let down again by the fact that we just make silly individual errors over and over.
Yeah, it's a weird one, isn't it? Like we were talking about, sort of. I went with my friend yesterday, Sarah. We was unpicking it after the final whistle, and we both kind of thought it wasn't necessarily a bad performance. We had plenty of chances, probably more corners than I can remember us having for quite a long time, But again, it's those silly errors in defence just ruin it, and it's just, I think, like, it is individual errors. Like you can't. I know, sort of, I watched Dean's interview on Charlton TV, and I was sort of thinking about what he was saying about not picking out individuals, and I know he can't do that in his post-match interview. It wouldn't be fair, but when you're talking about an experienced pro like Michael Hector making the mistake that he made, it's you want those senior pros to be the leaders for the young lads that are literally giving everything they've got. I mean, Nathan, oh my God, he literally ran himself into the ground yesterday, didn't he? So you would expect those players to be the leaders and show the young uns, like, the way you got, and encourage and not make, like, such a silly. I mean, that it was just such a stupid mistake from someone who you would really think would be a lot more alert to the bounce of the ball, and actually not having the legs to run back and defend for that. It's inexcusable, actually. I know it sounds really harsh, and I'm not normally that harsh, but what could have been, I feel like, a decent win because of the chances we had, ended up being a really poor loss.
Yeah, I mean, Bradley's just looking, we've got loads of chats coming in. Bradley saying everyone on the show is talking about not panicking. You have to when we're losing to poor sides. Same old problems. This team is no better than last season. Yeah, yesterday certainly felt like a bit of a turning point in terms of, I've spoken about how in the early stage of the season, sometimes you sort of you're still waiting for teams to gel, and you're going to see how they're going to land. But when certain things become a pattern, and we know that these errors that we've seen over the last few seasons have been a pattern, that the fact that they're still happening and the games are playing out in very similar fashion to how they did last season, then it is starting to get concerning. We know we need more signings. We know that we've been left short, and it's cost us points already at this stage in the campaign. So yeah, maybe it is time to start panicking a little bit. Let's have a listen back to the goals from Charlton TV. Then your commentators, as always, were Greg Stubley and Terry Smith.
Run of Khan, who surely is being held up there There's Carnu still in possession, goes past the keeper, and it's a penalty. Ripley came in to marshal Carnu out of the way. I thought at first that the officials were going to ignore it. There wasn't a huge amount of contact that I first saw, but Carnu went to ground and Ripley is being booked, and it's a penalty.
The problem is we can't see the angle of the assistant referee. The assistant referee gave that decision.
Alfie May steps forward, strikes it straight down the middle, and Charlton have the lead after 9 minutes. Alfie May, who's missed a couple in pre-season, makes absolutely no mistake with that one. Drilled it down the middle, and the Addicts are 1-0 up.
Chislett takes. It's a decent ball in, and it's headed in. At the near post, Wilson, the goal scorer, and Port Vale have their equaliser. A set piece. Catches Charlton out. It's a wonderful run, a wonderful ball in. And a glancing flick was enough to beat Maynard Brewer.
Yeah, as soon as Wilson made that run, the danger signs were there. Nobody went with him. Just a simple flick on. Maynard Brewer, no chance at all with that.
Forward towards Wilson. Oh, Hector let the ball bounce, and it comes the way of Chislett, who's through on goal. Chislett, opportunity. Port Vale have their second. A mistake by Michael Hector. Let the ball bounce, and Chislett was able to run through. 2 goals in quick succession have turned this game around. And Charlton have to come from behind now.
Well, another mistake, another goal. Ball through looked relatively harmless. Looked like it was an easy thing for Hector to deal with. He just skipped past him. And Chislett pounced. Taylor trying to set Anderson on his way, but Port Vale come away with the ball in midfield. Good tackle by Taylor, and he's back on it after a touch from Dobson. Into the feet of Carnu, trying to turn. That's great from Blackett Taylor to pick it up. Ball across, looking for the header, coming in from Carnu! Charlton's leading goal scorer bags another. He was involved in the build-up. Blackett Taylor, huge amount of energy to keep his run going to the edge of the box, and then lifted it back into the danger area where Carnu had kept his momentum going. Met it on the full with the header, and the Addicts are back level.
What a brilliant header from Daniel Carnu. Great play from Blackett Taylor, winning the ball back, gets his head up, spots that there's 2 runners from deep in the penalty area, and an inviting little chip into the box. There's Carnu leaping brilliantly, lofted head over Ripley. That's a classy header. Charlton now surely have the belief that they can go on to win this game.
This time it's going to go into the box. It's a low one. Oh, it's a scuffed clearance, and they just about get it away with Ojo in the end. And Asimwe's got some work to do here as Thomas bears down on him. And Asimwe making a meal of it. Thomas is in the ball and on the box, in the box. Takes a deflection, gets it back, and then a easy tap in for Ojo. Crushing, absolutely crushing. This time Asimwe has been outstanding all game. Just made a mess of the clearance with Thomas all over him. Then we thought he'd done enough between him and Maynard Brewer to stop the threat going forward. But when the ball was knocked back by Thomas, who caught up with it before it went out of play, Ojo, simple tapping.
Again, it's an unforced error from Charlton's point of view.
There we go. That's the highlights then from Charlton TV of yesterday's performance. Lewis, so how does Dean Holden iron out these mistakes? So, individual errors are frustrating, as we say. Like, players with Michael Hector's experience shouldn't be making them. And again, unfortunately, as I said on Thursday, he did make a lot of them last season as well. That probably went slightly under the radar. So obviously those players will want to take some individual responsibility. But I do ask Dean in the interview, which we're going to hear, what can he do? Because he's tried changing formation. He's tried changing personnel. What can he do to change it? Because obviously he needs to do something.
Yeah, it's like the £1 million question, isn't it? I don't think when it comes down to individual errors, it's very difficult to iron those out. And the problem we have at the moment is that the players making the individual errors aren't aren't facing any competition for their places. You know, we're short on players again, so that's already an uphill struggle. We've started the season short, which it feels like deja vu from seasons gone by. So it's difficult when you look at it because he can't really chop and change a huge amount, and all we're seeing and all he can do really is chop and change the system. I thought yesterday, for most parts of the game, we controlled it, and that's what's more frustrating. Like that first 25 minutes of the game, it looked like it was going to be a good day for us and get a win that we needed. Obviously, we got the penalty and went one up quite early, and we looked threatening every time we went forward, but we still lacked that sort of cutting edge to extend our lead, which I think that when it's us, it's always a problem because we do have that Achilles heel to give silly mistakes. Obviously, the first goal they score comes from a free kick. Why we don't have anybody capable of taking a set piece to that standard is one of my biggest frustrations because we can't seem to be that dangerous. Conceding from a set piece is frustrating in itself. The organisation of the wall and the defence was poor. I know Joe put a picture in our chat yesterday, and you see how it's lined up. It's just organisational mess. You know, it's so frustrating every single time. And then the worst thing for me is the fact that we concede a minute later. You know, you take that knock, but you've been on top for the majority of the game. You need to just go right, reset. But we didn't. We concede 60 seconds later from a defensive mistake from somebody who is a very experienced centre half with lots of, you know, he's had a very long career with different clubs at different levels. Somebody we probably look to at the moment, given the state of our squad, to be someone that will stand up, be counted, help with the leadership qualities, command at the back. I think that's what we've been missing the last few weeks. So when we stuck Hector in yesterday, I thought, well, maybe he'll be that commanding presence. What do you do if you're Dean? You're sat there scratching your head, aren't you? Because what's that now? Four defeats in a row if you include that Newport game, and in every single one of those games has been some kind of defensive howler. When you're costing yourself, you know, you're your own Achilles heel when you're making the mistakes that we are, and it's difficult. I mean, if I'm Dean, I'm getting them in today and I'm getting them to analyse those goals because it's not good enough. You know, at this stage, it's very early in the season. It's very easy to get defeatist and downhearted quite early on because there does seem to be that feel around the place at the moment anyway, from the hangover of the Thomas and what it is at the moment with this current ownership, in my opinion, still to prove what they're actually bringing to the table. There is a lot of uncertainty, and when you pair the uncertainty up with performances and defeats like we've had over the last couple of weeks, then it can turn negative very quickly. And I think yesterday was a real opportunity for us to try and turn that round. Going into a week where we've got a clear 7 days before the next game, we can rest some players and get key players back. But, you know, taking that result we got yesterday is not going to do us any favours there at all.
Yeah, morning to Crispy. Said I had to watch on the stream as currently have COVID, which I'm a bit nervous about because I saw Crispy last week on the Elizabeth line coming back from Peterborough. Glad I didn't watch that in person. The big concern for me is how bad we look at both ends set piece wise. Deliveries were just not. Someone put the website up the other day, so I can't remember if it was before Bristol Rovers or after, that said we had like the worst XG from set pieces. There's a website that sort of adds it up for you. And again, that was very similar to what we had last season. Dean Holden has spoken in the summer about really wanting to concentrate on set pieces, but we've conceded from one. You know, we've given up chances from quite a few of them already this season, and we just don't really look a great deal like scoring from them, Sue.
No, I know he was talking off air before about the set pieces, and we were trying to figure out who's in charge of them, but just I'm just looking at the stats, and I said earlier, like, the amount of corners, I can't remember us having that many corners before, and now we didn't make anything out of any of those. It's so frustrating, like, because they're your opportunity to really make something, like Port Vale did, but it's just really frustrating that they don't seem to really make much out of them. And again, like you're saying, like defending those set pieces, you just query. I know, like, we're working with quite a lot of the younger lads and they're still learning the game, and that's fine. But if you're practicing those set pieces in training during the week, why are they not coming off in match play? They're just not good enough at the moment. And like you say, even if you're not having the possession or the run of the game, at least when you get those set pieces, you need to make more of them than we are at the moment. It's just, I don't know what the answer is really.
Yeah, I mean, Patrick's saying, does anyone have any confidence that when we get a corner or a free kick, we actually get anything from them? They always seem so over or under hit and never find a Charlton player. Delivery's poor. I mean, Dean did speak yesterday. He says he thinks that Terry Taylor will be perhaps part of an answer to that problem. I think he hit a couple of corners yesterday that weren't ideal. Certainly I remember one that went all the way out basically towards the far side, which I think then Alfie may have to try and keep in on the other side of the pitch. One of the most frustrating things about yesterday, Lewis, not only the fact that I had fiver on Alfie May to score and Charlton to win, so I thought I was quids in after 9 minutes, but the fact that we did have that spell and we got a goal, and these are the sort of passages of play that should be enough to fire you on to victory. Like you get your noses in front against a Port Vale side that were winless on the road since New Year's Day. One win on the road in their last 15, and that one was at Forest Green Rovers, which doesn't count because it's Forest Green Rovers. Like the fact that we can't kill these sides off when we do have these spells has again become a bit of a recurring theme already this season.
Yeah, it has, and it's a massive concern because, sort of as I said earlier, like we scored that goal early. Yes, it isn't an open play and it's a penalty, but it's good for Alfie to get his first goal. And in that period, we looked dominant. You know, Port Vale looked like a team that hadn't won on the road since New Year's Day. They couldn't get hold of the football. They couldn't keep it. We pressed them high. We kept them under pressure the entire time. And we looked like we would go on and get a second. But at the moment, the problem is we don't look like putting that second in a lot of the time. At the moment, I think what feels like our tactic is just getting it to Corey and seeing what he can do, get it into the 6-yard box and hope that someone gets on the end of it, which 9 times out of 10 they don't. And I'm worried for Corey at the moment because we're relying on him so heavily. He really is probably the only player in our side. I mean, Alfie, it's probably a bit harsh on Alfie because I think that he obviously is a very good player and he's going to score goals. But at the moment, I'm thinking as soon as someone gets the ball at the back, I'm thinking get it to Corey as quickly as possible. And then Corey takes it down the line. He's beaten his man every single time in every single game this season. Like he's been absolutely outstanding. But then there's nothing in there. And when you've got a winger that's that good and that effective and you're still not putting your chances away, that is a massive concern. I mean, the obvious elephant in the room is that we're short up front, right? We know that. But that's where I'm concerned about this transfer policy at the moment. That's an issue we've known since Miles limped off at Welling at the start of July, 1st of July. We haven't addressed that area. It's the 20th of August and there is 10 days left of the transfer window. For me, it is a massive waste because we've got all that time now has been wasted. The preseason's been wasted. The games now, whoever we get in is going to take time to get up to speed because we're at the back end of the window where you get the players that haven't got anywhere yet. And that's what we're going to get. Some of them may come good, some may not. But it's such a concern at the moment. It is so disappointing that we cannot capitalize on our dominance. And when I say dominance yesterday, we looked like a completely different side the first half. We looked so controlled and I felt so comfortable. I had my feet up after 9 minutes. And then, you know, we just capitulate as we do every single time at the moment. And that the big concern, the mentality at the back, isn't it? That's something we really need to iron out.
Yeah, all hell let loose saying, what's the point of Kirk? I mean, you can ask a question about quite a lot of our bench at the moment. Like you're looking at it going, you know, especially now that Carney's starting games, and I thought played well yesterday. He was sort of the one player you'd look at on the bench and think, well, maybe he'd be able to change something. But obviously, because he started and like I say, did well. We're looking at that bench. I mean, DJ coming on yesterday, the forgotten man somewhat. I had such high hopes for DJ when he was first here. I remember lockdown season. I remember away at Sunderland him playing really well and ripping them apart. And I'm thinking, right, I reckon he'll kick on. And he never has and gone backwards. And I mean, that cameo from him yesterday was thoroughly disappointing. And you know, threw his hat into the ring for some bad crosses as well, which were just awful. We couldn't get off the floor. Like he was like one of our crossbar challenge attempters. Like, I just couldn't get the ball off the floor. It was a really, I mean, again, it just highlights where we are, Sue. Like, again, Dean will be looking inwardly and thinking, what can I do differently? What can I do about the the defense and whatnot, but he must also be looking at those above him who's, we'll hear the interview. He sort of separates himself from Andy Scott and the team that are now involved with transfers. He says that's them. Well, I ask him, well, are you not thinking, what are you doing? Because you've left me really short here.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we're never going to know about what conversations go on behind the scenes between Dean and Andy and the board, but he must be so frustrated because he's the man that's having to come out after every game and not make excuses, because I don't feel like he really does that. But it must be so frustrating and tough for him, because actually, like we've said before, when those injuries come back, we've got the core of a very, very good team. I think at the time we talked about at the beginning of the season, you probably didn't need to make too many signings to make it sort of a promotion challenging side. But obviously, you kind of never know that you're going to get that many of your first team injured. But at the same time, you talk about DJ. Obviously, I went to watch AFC Wimbledon last season, and he was playing for them, and he wasn't even good enough for them. So Dean's having to play players that probably wouldn't necessarily choose to play because they're not good enough, but he hasn't got any other option. And you can't polish a turd, can you? Do you know what I mean? It's difficult. I just really feel for Dean. And I know, like, I've been reading the comments and the people criticising Dino, but what option has he got? It's their bodies rather than nobody, aren't they? And you can only sort of advise players and you can't make them play well if they're not good enough. So it's bodies on the pitch as opposed to, like, well, you haven't got anyone else, effectively.
Yeah, I mean, Jordan in the chat saying, I still have faith in Holden. It really gets the fans' frustrations and hope the ownership put their hands in their wallets and we sign players early this week. But, Mickey's asking about Holden's tactically. He said he proved last season that he isn't tactically up to it. Yes, there's other reasons as to why we're so poor, unfortunately, but Dean also isn't up to the standard that we need. I mean, Charlton FC boy is asking about long ball tactics, which we spoke a little bit about on Thursday as well. I certainly noticed we interviewed the manager after the game and put out his quotes, and we'll hear that interview in the next 3 or 4 minutes, so you'll hear it yourself. It's the first time I thought he sounded a little bit under pressure. He's talking about coming out and sort of fighting and whatnot when the cards are down, which was honestly the first time I think we've heard him sort of take that tone. And certainly when obviously we put the stories out on social media and get the reaction from fans is always quite interesting. And there certainly was a few who've turned yesterday. I'll give you that, because we've seen that now on social media. We have to talk about Nathan Asimwe's mistake, Lewis. It reminded me a little bit of I think, it was a game during lockdown, but one where we were allowed a few fans in at home to Doncaster, and we had Charlie Barker, who'd had a reasonably good start to the season, but obviously now he's out in non-league. I don't think Nathan's quite his level. I think he's better than that. But we saw when Charlie scored an own goal in that game, he like crumbled. So how Nathan reacts to this setback, again, it's a setback he'll learn from, but maybe he shouldn't have to be in that position to make it. He looked knackered by the time that happened, and also, should we be asking him to play this amount of game time at his age at this stage of the season? No, of course we shouldn't, even if he has played quite well and looks a real prospect. But how he recovers from that, let's just hope it doesn't break him. I was really pleased to see when he got subbed off and walked in front of the covered end that the fans really showed their support, because again, I think if Hector got subbed off at the same time, I imagine the circumstances would have led to a slightly different reaction from the fans.
Look, I think you're right. I mean, I was going to touch on it as well about the way that the Valley crowd responded to Nathan coming off. I thought that was outstanding, and for an 18-year-old who, look, he's come in and he's been absolutely outstanding. And yesterday, before that mistake, he was absolutely brilliant. Like in all ways, I thought he was fantastic. You could see when he was running back, he was absolutely shattered. Like you can see his legs were completely gone. My biggest frustration, and this isn't really Dean's fault either, but this is where it comes from with the squad being short. We're not in a position to take him out. I mean, he's played what? You may correct me on the stats, but I can't think of a game where he's not played from the start the entire game. Maybe Newport, I can't remember, but that's a lot of minutes for a young kid, and he's been outstanding. A very good pre-season. He fell asleep a little bit on Tuesday night for the Bristol Rovers second goal, but bar that, he's been incredible, and it just highlights where we are. It's the same with Karoy as well. Like they're both being expected to play, 90 minutes week in, week out, Saturday, Tuesday, which they've staked their claim to put themselves in that first team. But as I said on Thursday's show, they're only 18 or so. There's a big difference between the level they were playing last season, the level playing this season in terms of the age groups, and it is going to be difficult. They are going to get fatigued, and I mean, look, Nathan Asimwe has nothing to be ashamed for yesterday. Of course, that mistake was hard to take, and obviously we lost the game off the back of that. But hopefully, it gives him a lesson learned for one, but also can help him build his character up and stuff, because I don't want him to sort of take that and let it beat him, because he's been, that one mistake doesn't sort of match up against how good he's been so far this season, and he's going to be a very, very good player for us. And the fact that he's kept that right back position, obviously now it's a bit different because Manny's gone, but from pre-season through to now is a real credit to his work ethic and his performances throughout pre-season and the start of this season. So he's got to bounce back. We've got a full week training this week, no Tuesday game. Let's hope that we can get some players fit. Hopefully Dean spends some time with Nathan one-on-one and just says, look, you're going to make mistakes, you're going to learn from them, you're only 18, it's what you do to bounce back that's important. So yeah, look, I thought that was the highlight yesterday for me, was the crowd sort of standing up and giving him that ovation off, because you'd think that would do wonders for him walking off. He looked down as he was coming off, and people were sort of doing this sort of chin up to him and stuff like that. And I think that's really important for a young player.
Yeah, and hopefully it will have that effect, because we need a reaction from the whole side. As Sid said in the chat, we can't keep losing to teams like Newport, Port Vale and Bristol Rovers. Right, let's hear from the Addicts boss, Dean Holden. Caught up with him after yesterday's game. This is what he had to say. Another afternoon littered with defensive mistakes. What went wrong this afternoon?
I was really pleased with the start of the game. I thought for 25 minutes we were excellent. Obviously scored the goal through the penalty. We've had the big moment with Corey, shot cleared off the line, and I was a little bit disappointed after that in terms of we got a little bit careless with the ball, and we invited the opposition who'd come here to defend deep and play for set pieces and long throws, and we invited the pressure onto us a little bit. You see them long throws. I think they had a header first half that was a dangerous moment for us from that set piece routine. Comfortable at half time. It's a little bit like the Newport one, really. When you get that first goal, I want to see us go on and take the game away from the opposition. And obviously the start to the second half was really disappointing in terms of we've conceded from a free kick. I'm not sure if there was a deflection or if it's flicked off somebody's head and flown into the far top corner, and obviously then the two goals that we've conceded are really poor errors. Having said that, you'll never see me talking about individuals publicly about mistakes and frailties. I think as a team at the moment we're finding different ways to lose games from good positions, and obviously got back into it through a wonderful header from Daniel Kanu, and we've created enough chances again, haven't we, today, to win a game of football. We need to address these individual moments. The positive now is that we've got a free week to come where we can obviously work on some things. Some players can get a little bit of respite in terms of players we're light in terms of numbers at the moment, so players are having to do every minute in a 3-game week. It's so early in the season, so we'll have to address where we're at. We're obviously disappointed with 2 defeats at home, particularly in 4 days. Nobody wants to see that. Having said that, that's the fact, and it doesn't matter if you're the better team. It doesn't matter if you're creating chances. If you don't defend your box well enough or defend them moments, you'll obviously concede goals, won't you? So we'll keep working. No magic formula. We'll keep working.
Yeah, I mean, what can you do? Because you've tried changing shape, you've tried changing personnel in the defence. You bring in a senior defender today who makes a mistake that we've seen a young defender also make near the end as well.
Yeah, exactly that. And I think if you watch the full game back, and for both teams, I think if you watch maybe a top Premier League game over the weekend, you'll see loads of mistakes within a game. It's natural. Unfortunately, on them 2 occasions, we'd like to have seen their moments off and been a bit more diligent in terms of making sure we clear the ball. Unfortunate for them, two moments, they lead to a goal completely against the run of play. So they're just moments in games, different for different reasons. Is it a lapse of concentration or whatever? So you can focus on that as much as you want. At the same time, there's a lot of things for us to do all over the pitch. We should have more points than we've got on the board at the moment, but we've not. So it's a wonderful opportunity for us, I have to say, with a free week now to get ready for the Oxford game. It's a wonderful opportunity for us to pull together and go there and show, the spirit that we've got in the squad and to keep positives. A lot of youngsters in there at the moment. We're obviously very light in terms of numbers. We've got some injuries. We've not been able to bring any more additions into the squad. So, we've got what we've got at the moment, and we've got new players who are not really up to speed, who are having to play the minutes at the moment. So, again, Louis, there's no excuses in there. We just have to face up to the facts, and I think the free week for us this week is good. And we'll put a team out. The fans will have no complaints about the commitment of the team at the moment. There's just obviously glaring mistakes which we're being punished for.
At the other end, obviously, he gave Dan his start up top today, and he repaid you with a fantastic goal and a first for Alfie as well. So you have to try and take some of those positives into next week.
I'm sure Alfie will fly now. Obviously, mentally, that'll be big for him. And as I say, I was really pleased with the start of the game in terms of that first 25 minutes. I thought Daniel and Alfie in particular gave the opposition problems. We played on the front foot. The majority of that period was played in their half of the pitch, weren't it? And that, as I said there, that's where it's disappointing. We weren't able to capitalise on that and really take the game away. And then when you've only got the 1-0 slenderly, you're always at the mercy of a mistake or two. So that's where we're at the moment.
No Pan Kamara today. They said minor foot injury.
Yeah, he's obviously Pan's come in. He's not played a great deal in the last 18 months, and 2 games in a week. He's just felt something underneath his foot, and it was a real risk that if he'd done any further damage, it could have been a mid to long term injury. So we had to be really mindful of that. So unfortunately, Pan missed out today. Hopefully, we'll get him through this week, and we'll get him back for the Oxford game.
Obviously, at the start of the season, I felt there was a lot of confidence from fans, and this little run that Charlton are in at the moment will be a bit of a shock to the system. And how do you sort of keep their morale up and attack the last few weeks of the transfer window as well?
Well, obviously that's we've got our targets. Obviously, Andy Scott and the recruitment team will be dealing with them types of things. My focus is obviously on the group of players that we've got. I thrive in these situations. It's not difficult at all. I know you talk about the mentality, and obviously there's been a drop off probably in confidence from the fans, and the fans won't be happy at the moment. They're seeing a team that's lost 4 games on the spin, albeit the Newport one we made 10 changes. So nobody's going to be happy at the moment. My job is to keep everybody together, is to keep pushing the standards, and is to go and get a result at Oxford. But I have to say, throughout my career and certainly throughout my life, personal situation is, moments like this is where I would like to think I'd come alive. So bring it on.
Yeah, I mean, you spoke about obviously Andy and his team in charge of transfers, but what's your conversations been like with them? Because I guess of Alfie May coming in, Pan Kamara, they feel like good signings at League One, but you've been left a little bit short at the start of this season, and it's cost Charlton points.
Yeah, it's not easy to get deals done, I have to say. There's a certain profile of player that we're chasing at the moment. There's not many of them out there, and most of the same clubs in the Championship in League One are chasing these same players. So it's not easy to get deals done. There's no blame going anywhere. We're working hard. We're working as hard as we can. Of course, we would like to have more players in. Of course, we would. But at the same time, it's important that we keep going. We've got a period of time left in the transfer window, and what's most important is what we look like come the end of the transfer window. Making sure we've got a squad that can really attack the rest of this League One season.
Thinking about a new kitchen or bathroom? Find professional, independent local installers with free home surveys, itemised quotes and protected payments, trading standards approved contracts, and workmanship warranties. The British Institute of Kitchen, Bedroom, Bathroom Installations accredits installers to ensure they are police checked, fully insured, and experienced. Take the risk out of home improvement. Visit bikbbi.org.uk.
Hello fellow addicts, I'm so excited to tell you all about our micropub, the River Ale House. The River Ale House is based in East Greenwich. It has 6 Pub of the Year awards, an ever-changing selection of amazing beer. It's owned by Charlton fans, walkable to the ground in just 20 minutes with buses that go direct to the Valley too. If your matchday routine includes a drink with your friends, you must join your fellow addicts in the River. See you soon.
Right, welcome back to Charlton Live. There, just before the advert break, we heard from the Addicts manager, Dean Holden. Did I sense something again that is or isn't there about him separating himself a little bit from Andy Scott and the transfer side, or again, am I reading into it too much? But he mentioned, we've been unable to pick up players. That's what James has noticed as well. Said not being able to bring more players into the squad. It feels like something is happening behind the scenes. We still a week and a bit left of the transfer window. So still the line is, well, go and prove yourselves, new owners. But the further this goes on, the less confident I imagine a lot of people are feeling about that, Sue.
Yeah, it's worrying, isn't it? I mean, I read something on Twitter the other day. It's like you said earlier, I think you said to Dean about it, like you get players like Kamara in and you get a bit excited because you think, oh, right, we're really going for it. And then nothing for 3 weeks. So it is worrying in that we clearly need strengthening. And you do sort of I think we've been burnt so many times now, haven't we, by ownerships, and you kind of think, right, have they actually got what they say they've got? Why are we not up there challenging for players that are available? I think we're probably going to be quite reliant on the loan market again, aren't we? And that worked out okay last season. I mean, Jez is the standout, isn't he? But again, we're going to be, if we're going into the loan market, we're going to be relying on teams above us and their young players. We're in a team that's already very young. So those experienced pros that possibly would settle the team down a little bit, it doesn't seem to be that availability. And I guess what Dean's saying is right, is you're going to have other teams going for those same players, and then you're getting into a bit of competition in terms of fees and stuff like that.
Which is fine, but what are we then? Are we a team that's actually going to challenge? Because in order to come out on top of competition, then you have to be the team that gets the players. You have to be the team that's an attractive prospect to the club that's either selling or loaning the player themselves who want to come, and that comes down to wages and all that sort of stuff. And what are we? What's the point of us if we're not going to make sure we are competitive like that? That's what I've been really struggling with over the last couple of weeks. Because as you say, Sue, and as we have said on the show, like Alfie May and Kamara on paper are like massive steps in the right direction. So what's the point in only going? If you need to make 10 steps in the right direction, what's the point in taking 2 and then stopping? Like you might as well take none. Like it's getting really weird so far. Jordan saying, I expected more signings when the new owners took over, but it seems like they have short arms and long pockets. Colin saying, Dean said we're light on players. That needs to be addressed by the board. We can't be waiting for Miles to be fit. He won't be up to match fitness. And he could break down. I mean, Mark saying that the team will not be challenging for top 6, not a hope in hell. Colin Hart pointing out, we'll talk a bit more about this on Thursday on the Big Match Preview, but Oxford are playing really well at the moment, so that's a tough game to look ahead to next week as well. Just touch on a couple of emails that have come in as well. Steve said there must surely be worrying times for Dean Holden as he sees Charlton underperforming again, defensively shambolic. We know it's early in the season, but 3 of our next 4 games are away to teams who have made really good starts, not looking good. Dean needs to turn it around pretty damn quickly. Talking about the mistakes again, the last 3 games have really jeffed me off more than any other times in recent seasons due to unforced errors again and again. Every goal we conceded so far has been for our own doing. I wouldn't mind if the opposition had cut us apart, but not one goal has been like it. It's too late. It's been too long now. Chris saying optimism already failing. Fortunately, I was working, so I couldn't watch us lose to Port Vale. Unfortunately, my kids did go. Their summary was basically it wasn't very good, brackets, not the exact words that they used. I don't know how old your kids are, Chris, with their potty mouths. But having said that, the first 2 home games I can see the style that Dean wants to play, but we know we haven't got the squad. We knew this weeks ago whether the owners step up now is their first test, but basically we've wasted a month of the season. If we keep making the same defensive blunders that we have done for at least 2 years, the question has to be asked about the quality of defenders Is it the quality of defenders, tactics, or the coaching? I think our defenders should be able to cope at this level. Indeed, I think we have improved the quality at the back from last year, but why do we have the same old problem? Be interested in your thoughts. Like, yes, obviously there'll be organisation and coaching stuff from it, but how can you legislate, Lewis, for Michael Hector, who's played Premier League football, and as I said to Richard Corley yesterday, not for a proper Premier League club, only for Fulham, but how do you legislate for someone of his experience doing what he did? Because what does Dean do in that situation? Does he go up to him and say, "Oh, don't do that. That was a bit silly, wasn't it?" What can he do?
It's a difficult one, isn't it? I mean, you'd like to think over the last couple of weeks, given how we've defended, that they'll be working heavily on defensive shape and stuff like that. Whether it's confidence, I don't know. Is it rustiness from Hector's part, from not playing as much? I mean, he came in a little bit later than expected with signing his new deal, and hadn't played really this season so far. So I've sort of thought, is he fit? Is he up to speed? I don't know. It's a tough one. I mean, at the moment, the defence, it's difficult to build a consistent and stable partnership, because that often is what helps solidify your back line, isn't it? Your two centre-half pairings tend to be like, they're the spine, and you need to have that strong partnership there. I think since we've started, we've played the three at the back with Terrell in there. We've played the two with Ness and Jones, and we're hauling Jones off after 60 minutes because he's not fit. Then we're sticking Heck in with Jones yesterday. So there's no real consistency there. I think that shows where we are, obviously, in terms of recruitment. We touch on it again. I just think that we're in the market we're in because of ultimately what you pay for is what you get, isn't it? You can't expect champagne football if you're not spending the money, and that ultimately that's where we are. We're bringing in players on freeze. So people, like Heck was here last season. He did all right, as you say. He made a couple of mistakes, but we've got him back in. Did the positives outweigh the negatives? Probably. So that's not so much of an issue. But that is the market we're shopping in. Like we're looking at players that are free agents that have sort of struggled to find clubs and stuff. Every player we've signed so far has had some kind of fitness issue, effectively, haven't they? Apart from Alfie, we're expecting Alfie to play 90 minutes every week. And then the likes of, Jones has been in and out, Pan's in and out, Terry Taylor's been in and out. So we're not seeing that side get built up. But defensively, I mean, look, Dino's got to sit down this week and seriously work on it. I don't know if any of Hazy or Danny Sender are sort of specialised more in the defensive side of things, but whoever does has got some serious work to do over the next 7 days to make sure that we don't keep making the same mistakes.
Yeah, right. We're going to bring our guest in very shortly. Just a couple more messages. Phil said, rushed home from holiday, all excited for the first game of the season, or his first game of the season. Complete shambles, new owners, same old rubbish. I've been away for 2 weeks and we've brought no one in. Quite frankly, Mevin and his merry band of absent owners should be embarrassed for what they have delivered so far. Feel-good factor has already gone, and it's no one fault but their own. Dan Trafford is saying, though, on a different day, Corey would have scored or set more up. The youngsters are doing well. I think we need a couple of journeymen, one in midfield, one up front. Then we can push on. Frustrating at the moment, but there are signs it all could click very soon. A couple of people have sent us the tackle on Corey as well, which obviously we haven't really touched it. But it should have been a red card yesterday, but we could start a whole new podcast on referees in League One, so we'll be here all day. Let's bring in our guest, shall we? Really excited about this one. It's a Charlton fan and author, David Ramzan, who joins us this morning on Charlton Live. David, good morning. How are you?
Oh, fine, thanks. Good morning, Sue and Lewis, and Louis yourself.
Yeah, thanks so much for joining us on your Sunday morning. Before we get into the book, then, obviously, as our guest fan this week, we have to pick your brains on how things have gone so far this season. So, obviously, try and keep it clean. But what have you made of it so far?
Yeah, well, I was hoping to come on, actually, when it's a bit more upbeat than we have been for the last few weeks. I think we started out seemed fairly good, but well, you touched on it all, really, over this programme, that the situation at the moment with the lack of signings, the players that we've got unfit, it just seems like it's going round in circles again. I think that I've been looking at the on the Facebook fans pages, and there's lots of criticism about obviously the ownership, and some are questioning whether Dean Holden's up for it or not. I don't really know. It's as I say, speaking to some friends. I think we was talking yesterday after the match, and when you look at the clubs that got promoted last season. I think it was Plymouth that they lost 7 games. The rest of the teams that went up only lost, I think, 4 and 6. So Charlton are like halfway on that number already. So I really don't know where it's going to go from here. I think just looking at stability at the moment and trying to pull things around.
Yeah, what have you made about the lack of transfer business in the last couple of weeks then?
I'm not surprised, quite honestly. We're not sure exactly who's got the money within the ownership, what the budgets are. I know they've spoken about having a budget that was better than last season, but it's all a bit of a questionable.
If you were Dean Holden and you're seeing the squad you've been asked to work with at the moment, how would you feel about the task that's been placed upon you?
Well, it's very difficult, isn't it? I think it's been the same with lots of managers. I know there's some managers that have come in and not been really the fans' choice, but a few of the managers that have come in over the last 2 or 3 seasons really haven't had a lot to play with. Regards to player-wise, it's really trying to make a silk purse out of a pig's ear.
Yeah. And that's what we seem to be stuck with. Paul Chris has put it another way, trying to play champagne football, but the champagne is from the Wetherspoons in Woolwich rather than a bar in Mayfire. It's a very nice Wetherspoons down at Woolwich, the Great Harry. I will defend it there. But if we are to take some positives from yesterday, obviously the fact that we've seen Dan Carnew and Alfie May scoring goals again. Yeah. Obviously a first for Alfie. Have you seen anything in these performances to suggest there is something there to cling on to? Because there have been some moments.
Yeah, his first 30 minutes or so looked really good. And I think playing 2 up front, especially at home, is the way to go forward. And I thought the setup wasn't too bad yesterday either. The way it was, I think it changed a little bit towards the second half with the back. But it looked fairly good in spells. But it's consistency. And I think Lewis might have mentioned it, that some of the players we've got, if they were really any better, they probably wouldn't be at Charlton. But I think that's probably as best you can get at the moment.
Yeah. And I've just noticed there's a Port Vale fan in our comments saying cheers for the 3 points and our first away win in age. And we did absolutely gift wrap it to him. Now, we are obviously not just here to talk about the shambles of our defence, unfortunately, David. You're an author. You've got a number of books out about Charlton, but you've got your latest one here, Star Addicts. Tell us a little bit about your latest release.
It all came about. I mean, this is going back quite a few seasons. We go away at the end of every season, me and a few friends, last away game. And I think it's after you've had a couple of beers in the pub after the game or before the game, we have a chat about certain things. And we was talking about what celebrity fans Charlton had. We have a couple of other supporters that come along, not actually Charlton. There's a couple of Tottenham fans, and we're always talking about the supporters that they've got, celebrities. So we just were having a chat, and it came up just talking about what fans we had. I know Cheryl Baker used to come down to Charlton when we was in the Premier League, which I met her on a couple of occasions, and she was sort of fairly supportive fan at the time. And was just talking about really what fans we've got. And there's been quite a few on media, social media sites talking about what Charlton fans, celebrities we've got. And I just thought it'd be nice to actually put a little book together with the fans and a little bit of history about them.
Yeah, I mean, is there anyone that while you were researching some of the characters and famous personalities that surprised you? So obviously, I mean, you see Jim Davison on the train to games. Everyone knows Jim Davison's a Charlton fan, but there's quite a few in there that I was slightly surprised by.
Yeah, some is quite tenuous links, but going back obviously to Billy Cotton, who recorded the Red Robin for the Glitsteins. But obviously Frankie Howard, I mean, he's not actually a sort of Charlton fan, but he used to live in the area, and he came back when Charlton were trying to get back to the Valley. Did a show to support the club, help them raise money. Also Mick Jagger. I mean, a lot of people sort of said, "Oh, was he a Charlton fan because of his sort of area he was born up in Dartford?" And it turned out he actually did go to Charlton when he was a lad. His dad used to take him to the matches with his brother. And he's often mentioned when he's been speaking to newspaper journalists that he always looks out for Charlton. And he was a friend of Derek Ufton as well. So there's a couple there that I wasn't sure about, but found out that they were. Yeah.
Yeah, that was Mick Jagger was the one I was hinting at there as a surprise. We were really pleased about that. Me and Sue were discussing before we came on. Like we knew he was from the local area. Obviously, the book's all lovely, really well illustrated as well. Which is I believe that's your hand as well, isn't it?
That is it. Yeah, I mean, I used to do a lot of work for the club back in the Premier League years when I was doing sponsorship gifts, caricatures of players. Even some of the players have had some caricatures from me. And it's also cheaper doing caricatures and actually getting photographs, which you have to pay a license fee for.
Yeah, we might start thinking about that for the SLP actually, rather than getting photographers in. Right, just let all our listeners know where they can get hold of your book.
Yeah, well, it's on Amazon. Just look it up as Star Addicts or under my name. There's a few books on there, as you mentioned at the start there. I've written a couple of books on Charlton, and some of them with a publisher. Amberley Publishing, but this one's a self-published book, which you can get on Amazon.
Excellent. Well, I guess your next massive long read will be listing out all the owners of the club at the moment, which will probably be a bit thicker than this one.
Yeah, and a few caricatures.
Yeah, certainly. David, brilliant. Thanks for coming on Charlton Live.
Cheers. Thanks for having us. Yeah,
good to speak to you, and we'll see you at the ground at some point.
Yeah. Good stuff.
Cheers.
Thanks
Excellent
a lot.
stuff. That's David Ramzan joining us here on Charlton Live. His book Star Addicts, which I've got a copy of here. It's out there on Amazon. Make sure you check it out. We're going to finish in about 3 or 4 minutes, but we should still. I mean, the chat about FFP is coming up again. So on Thursday, a couple of people asked us in the chat, and my understanding of it is, and we've seen this website that the people have sent, and someone emailed us the same website this week as well, actually. But basically, you can spend a certain percentage of your turnover. But it's a decision that you make because you can also put money into the club and count that as turnover as long as you don't expect it back as a loan. So that's my understanding of it, Lewis. So if that's the decision we've made as a club, then some people do that. If they want to run it in that way, that's fine. It does slightly come back to if we're currently where we are in League One and not looking like getting promoted. What's the point of us having a new ownership if they weren't here to try and, I don't know, give us a better chance, maybe, if they wanted to make a slightly different decision. Don't have to blow the bank, but I don't know. What do you think of it?
It's tough, isn't it? I mean, like you say, I don't think it really needs blowing the bank to get out of this division. I think it's just about being sensible and recruiting the right players and in the right time. We've started already behind because we're leaving it so late. Like, we've done what we have so far, but you want to be doing what Powell did and bringing in a team for your pre-season, getting them gelling, getting them working together, and your best 11 when you go into that first day. Obviously, that was a one-off season. It was incredible, but there's no reason why. I mean, the ownership, the takeover dragged on a little bit in the summer, of course, but we've had 25 something days since we last signed a player, Tayo and Terry Taylor. That's a lot. That's a lot of time in football to get things done, especially in the summer when you're in a tight window to get players in. So, look, I'd question the ownership if they weren't willing to come in and make a punt at getting us promoted, because they're not going to get any kind of return from anything if we sit and stagnate in League One, because everything will drop. So you've got to put your money where your mouth is and address the urgencies right now and try and salvage the season. Otherwise, we're going to keep stagnating and it's just going to be flat forever. Nice and positive, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's a lovely note to end the show. And that's got me right in the mood for the World Cup final anyway. We are going to end the show here slightly early. Lewis has got to get down the pub, but I've got to get downstairs. Sue's got to get to wherever her TV is as well to watch the Lionesses in the World Cup final. So we will let you guys go. But thank you to everyone who's joined us on the live stream this morning. We hope you have enjoyed the show. Thanks for all your comments as well. As I always say, they really do help the show sort of flow through and give us plenty to talk about. So I'm really grateful for you guys. Massive thanks to David, who joined us as our guest fan earlier. And a big thank to Sue and Lewis as well. Good to speak to you guys.
Cheers, both. Come on, you Lionesses.
Hello.
Yeah, fingers crossed that we will end today, at least with the Women's World Cup in our possession. And we can forget what Charlton did yesterday for a few hours at least. Right, I'm Louis Meadows. Thanks for listening to Charlton Live, sponsored by the British Institute of Kitchen, Bedroom and Bathroom Installation. We'll be back on Thursday with the big match preview. We look forward to seeing you then.
Charlton Live.